Y'all, my first podcast that I ever recorded was a podcast about coaching football. I couldn't get any college coaches or any NFL coaches or any famous people to talk to me. So I got an old buddy from high school who is the local 7th grade middle school defensive coordinator. I could not even get the 7th grade head coach to talk to me on my podcast. I had to go get the 7th grade defensive coordinator, the second in command. And when I recorded it, all I had was like one of those old, remember those old tape recorders that you would hit play, the reporter would hit play on it? It looked like that. It was digital, but it looked just like that. And I had to hit play on that and then record on that in the middle of the table in my little apartment in this little bitty town in the middle of nowhere. And then I recorded that and I moved it over to the computer. You could barely hear us. We were too far away from the microphones. And we just talked. We talked about defense. Man, he loves defense. We talked about the 6'2" defense. I'll never forget it. It was my first podcast. I said it before. Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster on the planet. Love him or hate him. He's got the most downloads. But he started out, he was like, I'm just going to record me and my friends talking because it's hilarious. And he sat around and talked to his friends, and they just talked. And they just recorded, they just released it out there. He didn't have a grand plan on talking, to Elon Musk and presidents and, Edward Snowden's and all these people. He just started talking and said, I wonder who else would talk to me. And he started asking to see who would talk to him. I remember when I did get my first big guest on the Coach XO show, I had gotten like 10, 20 episodes in. I'd reached out to some people on Twitter and some people said yes. And I asked myself that question. I said, wow. Now that my podcast is out, people can see it's real. There's a bunch of people that have talked on it. I wonder who else would say yes to me. So I reached out to Hal Mumme, who was a very famous coach, Hall of Fame coach, invented the passing offenses basically that we see today every Saturday and Sunday. It's called the air raid offense. Changed the game of football forever. And I went to the University of Kentucky. He coached at Kentucky, so I used that as a bridge. And I said, will you talk to me? And he said, yes. And I said, wow, Hal Mumme said yes to me. And then that weekend, after Hal Mumme got on there, I released that show. And I was watching Sports Center, or maybe it was College Game Day, and it was College Game Day, and there was a special that ESPN did on this guy down in Louisiana who he was famous because he never punted. He just went for it on 4th down every time, no matter what. I thought, oh wow, that guy was just on ESPN. I wonder if he would talk to me. And I reached out to his school, and he did. He came on my show. So he was on ESPN one weekend, and he was on the Coach XO show hosted by Shane Sams the next, just because I asked. But I had a backlog of 20, 30 podcasts. So when I sent it there, I could say, hey, check out the link. These are the other people we had. And I mentioned, and I talked to Hal Mumme last week. So that really was like, yeah, I'll talk to this guy. He's talked to famous people, blah, blah, blah. But it stacked on top of each other as I went ahead. I mean, I went in like 20, 30 episodes from 7th grade defensive middle school coach in my hometown to a dude who was literally on ESPN the week before. But it was all because I started, I recorded, I kept recording. I said yes to everybody at first. And then once I got a couple good guests, I used that as leverage to prove to people that it was worth coming on my show. And listen, you don't have to talk to anybody at first. You can just talk to yourself, like talk out loud. Look what I'm doing right now. This is a solo show, but a podcast will give you instant influence. It will make you official. It's like speakers. When you go up on stage, you're a speaker. The crowd's always wondering, how did that guy get up there? I know that's what they're wondering when I'm up there. How did this guy get up there? Who gave this old boy the microphone? But podcasting is the same thing. Like it's like being an author. Like you're a creator, and most people can't do this or don't do this. Like they don't even try. You're trying. You're listening. You want to do this. So when you start out, go solo or get people and just talk to them about the topics you love, and then reach out. Send 100 messages to 100 people that you would love to talk to in the world. If 5 of them come back, you'll have some great guests, and you'll have leverage that you can use to go out and find better guests in the future. Start somewhere.